Hello, and welcome to the fourth and last video in the series of the advanced configurations. And in this video, we will continue configuring the different settings of the Bridge Virtual Client itself. And by the end of this video, your Bridge suite will essentially be ready for production, so you can move on to full deployment or go on to the advanced connection setup videos, which will allow you to configure more intricate connection scenarios like using terminal server, multiple branch, HTTP connections, and more. But for now, let's go on and continue from the point we left off and go over the configurations of the local path user section, which, as I told you in the previous video, controls the locations in which the Bridge Virtual Client stores virtual applications components for applications allocated to users, OUs, and groups. Now, before I start, it's worth mentioning that you might see different default values in the following fields according to the product version you use, but the values I'm going to recommend are valid to all environments. So, as you can see, I have a path field for 6 different component types, and what we're going to do next is to verify each field is optimized to what you want to achieve. And for that, I will use a user-specific path for user-specific components like the user data, and shared paths for common components like AODs. So the first variable I'm now editing is the path where the event log is stored. And since the event log is user-specific, I'm going to use a user-specific location, and in this case the app data or application data folder. Although you can use, for instance, the user's own network drive or any other location which is specifically associated with the specific logged-in user. The next variable is the full AOD's storage path. And AODs are of course stateless images that can be shared by many users. So I'm going to verify that the path points to a location that is shared by all users using the endpoint. And we recommend using the common application folder, which points to an IF-Bridge folder under the All Users folder in XP, or under the Program Data folder in Windows 7. But again, you can use any generic location that is accessible by all users, but make sure to store it in a distinct folder, normally named IF-Bridge. Now, for convenience, I'll just copy this path here because I'm going to use it again for all the different shared component paths. Now, IFV engines are of course shared components, so I'll paste the path here. Language bases are shared as well, so I'll paste the path again. The shell shadows are AODs that contain all shell integration aspects of applications, which means they are shared too, so I'll paste it here again. But the user data, however, is user-specific and not shared among users, so I'll copy the path I used for the event log path, and paste it here. And again, all the paths I used here are recommended but optional. The main idea is that you should use shared locations for shared components and user-specific locations for user-specific components. Okay. The next section, the non-domain computers section, controls various aspects relating to non-domain computing, which will be discussed in the advanced connection setup, but I will still go over it briefly now. So first, let's take a look at the approved domain list variable here. Now, an approved domain is a domain name for which the Bridge Virtual Client will use the regular login credential used by the user when he logged into his machine. This means that if the domain carries a different name than the one marked here, the user will be prompted by the bridge to log into his domain with a simple login screen like the one you see now. So for now, all you need to do is to make sure that the parameter here is your actual domain name. And if for whatever reason the IFMC didn't populate this field automatically, then you should make sure to insert your own FQDN in this field. Also, you should make sure that the approved domain list feature is enabled by expanding it, and you can see it is set to enabled. The next variable, the default domain name for non-domain computers, will make sure that when users log in from a non-domain computer using the Bridge logon window, they won't need to type the domain name as a prefix to their username. So all you need to do here is to make sure that the domain name appearing here is your organization's actual domain name. And again, like in the previous variable, if the IFMC didn't populate this field automatically, then you should manually insert your own FQDN into this field. Next, the Enable Remember Password checkbox variable can control whether the Bridge logon screen will have a Remember Password checkbox. So unless you need some more strict security measures, we recommend leaving it set to yes. And this variable, the Set Remember Password to On by default, simply checks the Remember Password checkbox in the logon screen by default, which means that the password will be saved after the first time it's punched in, and in the next sessions the user won't have to manually enter his logon credentials. And we recommend leaving this option set to off. So, we're done with this section, and now let's go on to the next section, the server path section, in which you can control the file share server paths used by the Bridge Virtual Client to connect to, read data from, and write files to. The first variable, the alternative file share path, is meant only for those of you who use more than one install-free file share. For instance, different file servers in different branches. But since multiple branches is discussed in the advanced connection configuration videos, you should simply leave it empty for now. Next, we have the path to the main install-free file share. And as you can see here, the path was automatically inserted during the initial setup phase, so you don't need to change it. The next variable is related to install-free's self-service application feature called self-provisioning, which allows users to assign applications to themselves. And this path here sets where self-provisioned applications are stored. In this case, the default data folder in install-free's file share, which is the same path used for the user data files here. And if you wish to change any of these, for instance to the user's own network drive, you must first make sure that the user has write permissions to that location. And finally, the last section, Startup Applications, allows you to control various aspects relating to virtual applications which are designed to run on startup, like MSN Messenger for instance. The first variable simply enables or disables virtual applications to run on startup. So we recommend switching this variable to yes, so applications which are designed to run at startup will do so. Next, we have a similar variable, enable user-controlled startup applications. But unlike the previous variable, which is related to applications that are supposed to run on startup by default, this variable relates to applications that were set to run at startup by the users themselves. And in most cases, we recommend setting it to no. And lastly, when set to yes, the Run Startup Applications upon download makes sure that if an application that is designed to run on startup was assigned to a user while his bridge is working, then the application will automatically start the minute it was downloaded and won't wait until the next actual startup to launch, and we recommend setting it to yes. So we're done with configuring the bridge properties. So I'll click Apply and OK to make sure the changes will take effect. And this basically concludes the advanced configuration step, which is the last section in the advanced setup phase. At this point, your install-free bridge suite is production ready for endpoints within a domain that are connected to the install-free file share over SMB. But before we conclude, I would like to remind you again a note I started with in the first video. As I said there, antivirus programs might prevent virtual applications from running, and now after we have set all the different paths, it might be useful to add exclusion rules to your organization's antivirus program. The rules should exclude the bridge folders configured in the sections above, which by default are the appdata/ifbridge, and Common Application Data /ifbridge, which, like I've said, correspond to the All Users and Application Data folders in XP, and Program Data and Application Data in Windows 7. And of course, if you have configured different locations, then create the exclusion rules accordingly. Well, now you can move on if you wish to the advanced connection setup, and you can see the different options in the clickable decision flowchart. On the other hand, you can go on to other training modules relating to deployment and configuring of IFV applications, updating system components, reports generation, and more. And links to these videos can be found in the description box like always. And again, thank you all for watching.